Welcome to English. Get your short date in your margin after you finish yesterday's writing, because today you're going to be working on your own ending. Now, with your short dates in the margin, make sure your eyes are on the board because we're going to go through what we are doing today. But first, we're going to address a quick misconception, and this is using and applying speech, as you may want this in your ending. When most of you write speech, there are still some mistakes, especially opening and closing inverted commas, said Mr. Bevan. Now, in this, I've done what the common errors are, essentially. First and foremost, is I'm never just going to say, for the sake of it, said Mr. Bevan. I would never say that. It's very rare. I might say, Mr. Bevan said something in the speech, because that might be what your character's saying. But your character is never going to turn around and say, said Mr. Bevan at the end. It's very, very unlikely. Your character in the story, if they're named Ava, for example, like mine, it's never going to say, said Ava, in the middle of a speech. It'd be very bizarre. So that shouldn't be inside inverted commas. The other thing, when people take pauses, when most of you write speech, there are still some mistakes, especially opening and closing inverted commas. Some of you are leaving inverted commas for every single pause your reader takes or your person talking takes. Now, that's not accurate because they're still talking. So the speech marks don't need to be closed. The inverted commas don't need to be open and closed. So instead, this is how it should look when someone's speaking. So instead, punctuation, such as this comma, shows the pause. Only close once the person's finished speaking. Oh, and of course, new line, new speaker, declared Mr. Bevan. So there are your rules. I'll put declared Mrs. Bevan outside the speech because I wouldn't actually say that bit unless I'm reading a book. No one in common real life really says that line unless they're reading from a book for that reason. So the key things are, if your person is still talking, do not close your inverted commas till that person stops speaking. If they're saying more than one thing, that's when you use your full stops, your exclamation marks, your punctuation to show they're saying more than one sentence. And that is totally okay. If they're also just saying one sentence, obviously then you close your speech marks. But you don't just close them to get them to say something else and say a second sentence. Keep them open until they say their full thing. Also, another thing to point out clearly, this is a bit we are getting right, but just a reminder, capital letter at the start of speech and making sure you're closing with that punctuation inside the inverted commas. So here's an example of what you could use when writing your story. So, my normal writing, shocked, Ava saw her mum standing there. Hello? New line, new speaker. She uttered in confusion. New line, new speaker. Oh, Ava, I've been waiting for you to come home. For so long. Exclamation mark. She's saying a lot there, but I'm not closing my inverted commas to start of a new line. I've said the full piece that mum's going to say. I think it's pretty clear to infer new line, new speaker shows it's the mum responding. So I'm not even going to write said mum. I think it's quite clear to the reader. Ava could tell her mum was surprised and pleased to see her. That's just part of the paragraph. Obviously, I'll need more around that. But hopefully you can see here clearly. One person speaking. Don't close until I finish speaking. Something quite short. I could have said, and I've got, oh, Ava. The pause there is a comma, not closing the speech. And then I've carried on. So hopefully that's clear. So if you get speech in your conclusion, which you're more than likely to do, I imagine, and you'll see it in my example, that's what you're looking for. So, now moving on to today's task. We're obviously looking at closing the journey. The journey is in the book, but your own interpretation, which has its own title. So for mine, the journey of colour. What is going to happen to Ava in the castle? Is it going to be a happy or sad ending? Questions you should have decided when you was planning. So you have got your planning books to support you. It might be worth looking at that in a minute when I get to that point. But for my example, my ending, where I spoke about the mum is going to end up being pregnant and she's going to have a younger sister. With a heart full of joy, Ava entered the gargantuan golden palace doors, as she couldn't wait to see inside was as majestic as the outside. As she stepped inside, a cold shiver was sent racing down her spine. It was her house. Feeling puzzled, Ava realised everything was now in colour, apart from the family photos hanging on the hallway walls. Ava, "You're home," she heard a familiar, relieved voice utter. Ava didn't know how to respond, nor what to do. Instead, she looks up the emerald staircase at her mum and dad's. That was when she saw the strangest thing. Her mum's belly was glowing red. The same red of her crayon, her scooter, her door, and her boat. She wondered, what did this mean? That was when she noticed a black and white photograph in her dad's hands. "You're going to be a big sister, Ava," proudly announced her dad. Suddenly, life made sense. A single tear rolled down Ava's cheek as she promised never to let her little sibling feel as lonely as she had for the past weeks. So that is my ending. I've kind of gone full circle there at the start of my first introduction paragraph. I very much said life isn't fair. Now I've got life made sense. So I'm linking back. And I'm linking back to that idea of her being left alone, not looked after, and her mum and dad actually missing her when she was gone. To show she is cared for. It's obviously pregnancy has taken time out of her mum and dad's life. So it's to show that clear reflection, that image. That's how I'm ending mine. That's not to say you have to end yours the same. So with that in mind, your ending. Now obviously your ending can be fairy tale based. As long as it links into your story, it's okay to make the ending however you please. But you want to consider, how does Ava enter the castle if she enters it at all? Does she go through the front door? Does she go through gargantuan gates? That's what I was tempted to do for alliteration. So how does she enter the castle? Or is it in through a window? Who knows? It's your story, your choice. What does she find inside the castle? Describe the things she sees. In mine, it's that hallway and it's the photos on the wall. But in yours, what does she see? Does she see a red carpet, like the crayon? Does she see a colourful world? What does she see? So describe all those things, and then describe the places she goes. Does she go to a bedroom? Does she go to a big kitchen full of food? What happens? You tell me. You're the narrative writer. You are correct. How does it link to the rest of your story? So make sure it does link back in. And will Ava have a happy ending, where maybe she lives at this castle forever with lots of friends? Or does it have a sad ending, where Ava finds herself trapped in this castle all alone? And how are you going to make this clear to your reader that this is the ending for now? So they are your things to consider. Your plan should, of course, help you. But concentrated task, I want to see this beautifully written when I get return.